Peace, blessings. What's up, y'all? It's your boy Phil at here we are, Soul of a Nerd. Thanks for checking me out on my channel. Today we're in the midst of weekly reviews of Marvel Studios Disney Plus series WandaVision, and today we're going to review episode 5. I'm actually looking at it again as we speak, but basically, oh, by the way, click subscribe and if you like this video, and check out some of my other ones as you go along. I've got movie reviews uh, and WandaVision and a few other things on here. So kind of relaunching for 2021. 2020 was a very slow year for a lot of things as far as movie and entertainment, which is what I like to do a lot of reviews of. So, now that things are kind of back on track and we've got some MCU material, here we are. So, right off rip, let me say chapter episode 5. Um, they started off with a bang. I think now that we saw episode 4 and some of the truths of what's happening has been revealed, episode 5 definitely had to kind of take a different approach. They did go back to the sitcom thing and moved into the 80s, which I expected, but obviously it was going to be with a little bit of a different twist, because now we know kind of what we're looking at. So there's going to be even more oddities in the sitcom. And we saw that almost right off rip with Agnes when she came over to help with the kids. Very, again, borderline, I'm not going to say the stuff is creepy or scary, but it's eerie to watch what's happening, when it just looks like she just flubbed a line or had a blooper, outtake, deleted, scene need to be deleted right in the middle of her line on a show. Like, imagine watching a show and seeing that happen. Like, you're really not supposed to see that stuff unless it's in a blooper reel, which was actually a big thing in the 80s. Those of y'all old enough remember, there used to be a show that Dick Clark used to host, as a matter of fact, where they would show bloopers on soap operas and sitcoms and everything. Anyway, so right there, it's just very strange for her to just get stuck, not knowing what she's supposed to say. And she's just asking, she's looking dang terrified, looking at Wanda like, do you want me to say that again? Or did you actually want me to hold the babies? And again, I see that these episodes, I'm going to have to watch them twice to really pick up the nuances and subtext of what's happening. The first time, you're just taking it at face value, but having watched it again, it's like, it's more evident that really what's happening is, again, these people are so used to Wanda controlling them. It gets more into the fact that Wanda is controlling things, because even her popping up, you start to realize, oh, and there's a line later on where Vision's starting to pick this up, like, why does everything that you need pop up right when you need it? So that lady was being summoned there in actuality. So again, it's funny because in the sitcom world, that's how they would do it. People always just pop up right in the middle of a dialogue that references them. But also, this is a case of she's doing this to people. So if she needs a babysitter, she's just summoning somebody under mind control, basically. So that makes it more. It makes more, adds more layers of depth to how Agnes is like intimidated by her and not really sure what she's supposed to say right then, because Vision is kind of like, you know what, maybe we shouldn't do this at all. So it's like this growing conflict of Vision kind of acting out of sync with what Wanda's trying to program on this show. So that was a great moment, and it was just weird and very awkward. Again, Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen are killing this, though. The acting is just so spot on. They're just killing it. So then they get into the opening montage. I gotta shout that out because that was like Family Ties, which was one of my favorite shows growing up from the 80s, right up there with Cosby Show and what else from the 80s? Three's Company was still in his later years. But yeah, Family Ties was a great one. The house set to me was built around, resembling uh, Family Ties a little bit. Except on Family Ties, like that stairwell that they had on WandaVision, that came down, and then I think their front door was to the right. So you would have came down and went to your left if you're in the house. Whereas in this show, it's come down and to the right is the front door. Anyway, so that's what I think they were kind of, you know what I mean? Not parodying, but inspired by or going for the feel. And then the opening montage with the painting and stuff, that definitely was Family Ties. The song is cracking me up. Just who were the geniuses writing these jingles, these sitcom themes? Each decade episode, they're killing it. They're writing these songs that sound like the 80s. So, I'm not going to go all into detail, but like the little cheesy inspirational lyrics, it had like the Family Ties mixed with Full House, mixed with, what's the other one? I'll just go with those two. Oh, Growing Pains. Yeah, there it is. That type of opening song. Another good show from the 80s, Growing Pains. And Full House. But that was late 80s. So I'm wondering if they're going to get to a Full House thing. They got to. They got to do a Full House. Being, the meta of that's the twins from Full House, little sister, Mary Kate and Ashley. Anyway, so going a little bit further, I'm going to pause here real quick and come right back. Okay, so then we get into the real world outside of Westview. We see Monica Rambeau. I notice they keep calling her Captain, which I think is kind of interesting because comic book wise, Monica Rambeau was the first female Captain Marvel anyway, before Carol Danvers. Totally different look and everything, which is what I got hit to when I read Secret Wars comics in 1984, 5, 6, whatever, when those toys came out. So there's some interesting things I think going on with her. One, I'm pretty sure she's come out of this experience with Wanda, probably being blasted um, with Wanda's powers. I think she's going to be, she's going to gain some kind of superhero powers. There was a key point she made, which was a little bit of a loophole or plot hole, whatever you want to call it, for me in the last episode was how, yeah, she got shot through like a brick wall and like up through a bunch of fences and, material, hard walls, and then out of the bubble and hit the ground and rolled and like wasn't hurt. So she makes a comment that during the briefing with the commanding director of SWORD guy, which is interesting because if he's a director of SWORD, what the heck is Nick Fury doing? So we'll have to get some explanation on that. But she kind of defended the fact that Wanda threw her out, but also protected her, which I had already assumed that they're going to have to say she put a protective bubble around her, so to speak, as she sent her flying out. So I'm thinking maybe that just that one encounter is just going to have her walking away with some new abilities. I mean, maybe an oversimplified way of giving her powers, but it's cool. But she comes out of this thing and she got put into a MRI machine to check, injuries, and I guess. And it was notable that the technician ended up saying she needs to go retest it because the machine wasn't working properly, and they showed her scans came back like blank. Although you could see like something in the corner. It's almost like it was her hair, but you couldn't see the rest of her. I don't know. And then Darcy makes a point to say, yeah, there's nothing there. And the technician's like exactly, I need to do this again. Monica's like, no, I'm not. I'm good on testing for today. So I think that's going to be significant. Something about her scan didn't read, so like she's not visible. I'm trying to remember what the powers that Captain Marvel had. Maybe invisibility is one of them. Because I also have heard I'm not the biggest comic book nerd, but I believe she becomes a character called Spectrum as well, in that it is something about invisibility. Spectrum usually means like a ghostly appearance or something. So, or specter means a ghost. So, yeah, so we have that. Interesting dialogue between Agent Wu and the director, Hayward. He keeps bringing up things about Wanda's in a negative light, and Wu's trying to defend and point out, she's a member of the Avengers. He's pointing out, little, she doesn't have the cleanest background. So that was a good scene. Um, the dialogue is typical Marvel. Like it moves quickly to the point where, in a way, it's a little conveniently quick that their intelligence is so high and they're able to just gather intel and just talk about it so quickly and freely. But for the purpose of a show like this, I think they just got a good balance of it making the show move along. They've always done that even in their movies. So I don't know how they manage to do that when it's different writers all the time. I don't know if they just have a boot camp at Marvel Studios where Kevin Feige puts these people through the training on how he likes his stories of movies to be written. But yeah, so there we go through that. Good scenes, good scenes to keep things flowing. The loving, I mean, the Monica character is already like, what I mean, she's gaining her props, in this series and like within the MCU in general. I just think her presence and role and validity in the MCU is going to be pretty nice. There was a key point, another one, in my opinion, that I think probably went over a lot of people's heads, but little nuances. They were talking about, she brought up, after they started trying to figure out a way to get back in, um, they were talking something about let me not skip past it. They showed footage of Wanda breaking into the Sword's facility, which is where they had Vision's corpse, his body, after Endgame, or after Infinity War, I guess, basically. So it's kind of cool to get those little gaps filled in. Infinity War ends with the Avengers surviving, Avengers sitting around his body. So apparently they took him, handed him off the Sword, I guess, which is interesting because, like I said, Nick Fury was dusted. So, it's almost like you wish you could have a little fill in, just something to show Cap and Black Widow and uh, Rhodey and Banner, delivering the body or something like that. You know what I mean? Anyway, so this is where apparently Vision was kept for those 5 years, and apparently, once Wanda was returned, who knows how shortly this was after Tony's funeral, but she broke into this facility and stole the body. So there was our answer for that. So a lot of people were wondering, what is Vision's appearance in the show? Is he, especially with this jump scare scene from episode 4 with the you know forehead ripped out and the gray body and all that. I'm still not quite sure. I don't think they've really 100% answered that, but it gives you the impression that she's just working with his corpse, which is kind of creepy. and again, it's making him appear. Who knows how deep you can go into that? I'm not even going to speculate that far at this point. I think it's almost like now you really can. At least for me, I don't have to question and try to figure out every little thing I'm looking at. Some things like, please, if they explain it, they do. If they don't, they halfway explain it, or however the case may be. Now that I'm seeing how the show is really just moving, it's like I'm good. In maybe in retrospect, I'll look back and say they could have answered and handled some things better. But right now, I'm okay with the way they're revealing information. So I'm not going to do too much speculating. I'm going to just let them tell me what they want to tell me as they tell me. There are some things though that naturally, stand out to me, and I want to speculate and try to make some guesses on where they're going. So, and then they happen to mention while they're watching that footage, I think Monica asked, "Well, how long ago was this?" And he said like 3 weeks ago or something. So it's like this Westview situation is really new or it's happened. I can't remember the exact. Actually, I'm looking at it right now. Let's see how soon they said it's happened. But they're saying he resurrected him. I mean, that's crazy. And they brought up the Sokovia Accords, and that Vision had a will that he didn't want to be resuscitated, or basically. So, interesting about Hayward, in kind of typical fashion, he's becoming a little bit of like the boss that, people are having a little issue with. Like, you know what I mean? It's a little cliche that all of these subordinates, so to speak, are kind of in conflict with him philosophically. You have Monica, you have Jimmy Woo, you have Darcy, so they're not really feeling him. Um, who knows what that means? Is he dirty, or is it just to have that type of character who's a little bit of authority figure who you end up defying him? It's kind of just creates a little tension and conflict within the good guys. I understand that kind of stuff. But they also, they were talking about how what does this mean if she's able to resurrect this dude even without the Mind Stone? So they're already hinting at they're talking amongst themselves like, what the world has her power level increased to? So that's a significant point to bring up. Um, oh, another thing about the opening montage that cracked me up is that they had pictures doing the '80s montage thing where you show the family members of the show as kids, which that is, I think that's from Growing Pains directly. But they showed baby Vision, and I was cracking up like there is no baby Vision. Vision was never a baby, but they showed him as like a toddler and a baby and all this stuff. Freaking hilarious, man. So let's talk about the twins real quick. So they introduced the twins, and we immediately see that they're like aging progressively, which I kind of suspected that was going to happen. Like they're not going to be babies through this whole episode. So they're showing whether that's a power of theirs or whatever. But I think my point that I want to point out is that's interesting because they're doing this growing kind of beyond Wanda's control. So it's almost like, are they introducing the fact that these twins may become a problem for her? Kind of, she created a monster, so to speak. Like now you got these twins, and they're going to present a little monkey wrench in what she's doing because they're not really listening to her, which I think is cool because they're introducing a little bit of a crack in her armor that she can't control everything. Because now she got these twins and they're just growing, and they show they had the power to age themselves from 5 to 10 years old, um, which was dope. And yeah, so I think if you're that's and also a great way to create young Avengers. If these kids, whoever they end up being, they can age them later on in the movie or by the end of the series. Maybe they get aged into like later teens, and then they can be like younger Avengers for the next set of Avengers or whatever. Because I think if you follow a lot of this geek stuff about the MCU and stuff, they're kind of setting up a young Avengers crew. So that was good evidence that they could be doing that. Um, so yeah, so they're Darcy and Wu and Monica are trying to figure out how to get back into the Westview bubble, and they're calling it the Hex. That's what Darcy called it because it's shaped like a hexagon. Um, Monica mentions that she knows an aerospace engineer who would love a shot at this. So I'm thinking to myself, I could definitely see. Well, I have some suspicions on who that could be, and probably first thing came to my mind was somebody from the Fantastic Four. Like first thing that came to my mind. So that's either any of them, really. I was thinking Ben Grimm, just for whatever reason. Um, I just think he would be the coolest one to introduce in that manner. But it could also be Reed Richards or Sue Richards. Any one of those people. It's a good way to introduce Fantastic Four. So I'm pretty much guaranteeing that who she's referring to is that. Whether they show up in the series or not, they're probably going to introduce one of those people. But here was a funny thing that I noticed. Was mentioning earlier, little nuances. Like when she said that, like Darcy mentioned, "What about Captain Marvel?" or something in this same dialogue, and like the look on Monica's face when she brought up Captain Marvel, it gave an impression she ain't too fond of Captain Marvel. It was just like kind of like, no, I'm something. Oh, now yeah, this was a part that was a little corny to me. This is what it was. This is when that came up. They were talking about this was a little too convenient. They were doing like a play-by-play recount of what happened in Endgame. It's like they were talking about like how, yeah, well, Monica mentioned that Wanda almost took Thanos out by herself if it wouldn't have been for something, something, something. And it's like, well, how do y'all know this? Y'all weren't there. It was a movie that the audience was watching. I mean, it was happening in life in the MCU, but y'all weren't there. It's not like it was being broadcast for people to know. And then um, also, so then that's when Darcy was like, "Yeah, Captain Marvel put up a pretty good fight too," and she kind of looked at her like, "Yeah, we're not talking about her though," or something like that. So I think that was a little foreshadowing because Monica is supposed to be in Captain Marvel 2, but I think it's a little foreshadowing that maybe the two of them aren't going to get along very well. Of course, she knew her as a little girl from the first Captain Marvel movie, so we're going to have to get an explanation for what is her beef with Captain Marvel. Plus, like I said, the fact that in the comics, Monica was the original female version of Captain Marvel before Carol Danvers. So, maybe they're just doing a little nod to that. Same way they did Iron Man 2 when he found the fake mimic model of Captain America's shield. He just had it like tossed around in his junk pile, and it was a foreshadowing of how him and Cap were always going to kind of clash, that kind of thing. So, but yeah, the fact that they were just kind of play by playing what happened in the movie, and like, how would y'all know this? Like, are there reports of it from witnesses to the battle? Like, did Captain America and Spider Man and all of the Avengers who returned sit down and talk to all the have a reunion after everyone came back from the snap and just ran down everything that happened? You know what I mean? It's kind of silly that these civilians, for the most part, basically, would know these kind of details, like literal scenes from the movie. Like, yeah, Wanda almost took Thanos out by herself. Well, Captain Marvel kind of put up a good fight too. Like, what are y'all going back? You know what I'm saying? It just seemed a little cheesy for them to write that in. Um, Fast forward to the moment where Vision realizes that his coworker is like a little bit under some kind of mind control. I'm not going to go too much into that, just more evidence of him uncovering that there's this weird stuff. Still maintaining their 80s sitcom vibe, which I thought was funny. They were talking about the internet and the dial up, and it was the classic sound AOL.com, baby. That dial up sound, trying to get your internet popping off, was, I can definitely appreciate that. Um, There was the weird scene going back a little bit when Agnes was pulling out some liquor for herself. It's kind of funny. I was just like, is this lady just basically like realizing she's in a prison? So I was like, let me just have something to drink. Or was she just mimicking a '80s character who's like a weird neighbor? It was just kind of weird. But yeah, and it's like even the kids started to figure out like what is mom doing, and she's kind of scrambling to keep up with everything she's doing because she was trying to explain to them how Vision was at work, and they're like, well, it's a Saturday, and she's like, well, no, he just needed a distraction. So just a lot of stuff started to happen. It's like where she's losing a little bit of grip and control over what she's doing. Of course, then the dog dies. Oh, the name of the episode 5, was on a very special episode, which was, again, hilarious. There's another reason why it makes me think of Family Ties, because Family Ties was one of those shows that had numerous on a special episode of where they would try to tackle a tough subject. I think Alex was on some caffeine pills at one time. Mallory had some issues. They always used to do stuff like that. But Alex P. Keaton, for those of y'all who don't remember the classic Family Ties, Michael J. Fox. But so yeah, what I like about this episode was like this was just continuous. They're doing the '80s sitcom, but it's like continuous interruptions now. Like I said, they just really balancing. Now the people outside of Westview are working their way back in and trying to get some stuff popping off, to get a better idea of what's happening here. So Monica figures out to send in an old device because they figure out how if it goes in a modern style, it changes into the period's version of that. Her bulletproof Teflar, is that what it's called, material outfit that she got sucked into it in, turned into a Teflar bell bottoms, jumpsuit, whatever thing. So they sent in something that's already old, so it can't be changed. So it kind of slipped past her radar because she's literally changing stuff subconsciously, basically. If it comes in and it's not of Westview, she's gonna change it into what she needs it to be in Westview, basically. So great scene when she gets a hold of it and comes out of the bubble to confront everybody. And the one thing I noticed was like her accent was back, which has continuously been lost. Like she didn't even speak with an accent in Infinity War. She kind of did in Endgame, so I guess maybe Infinity War was because she and Civil War. She wasn't really talking with. Well, yes, she was. She was. So really, it was more like she lost it in Infinity War. It seemed like more than anything. And they've always explained that. Or I've read they explained it because she's worked on being a spy and being undercover. Black Widow was training her. So masking her accent will be essential. Anyway, she's got it back, but it's definitely kudos again to Marvel Studios because they've been working on it because it was a questionable accent for her and Pietro in Age of Ultron. Like, how long are you gonna be able to maintain that accent? It's a little heavy and a little almost borderline cartoonish, but it sounded dope on this episode. I'm looking at it right now, and like I said, that scene was good. She ain't playing with y'all. Had back on her MCU Avengers movie outfit, so that was cool to see. You see stuff on the big screen on the small screen. Picked up right where they left off with her on that. Yeah, so it's interesting that it looks like her and Monica, they're gonna have a little bit of a. It's gonna be interesting their relationship as the MCU moves forward, um, especially since, as I mentioned, it's like Wanda could definitely be becoming a not a villain per se, but an adversary for the Avengers for the foreseeable future, which I think will be great for storyline purposes and so on and so forth. I mean, who knows what they're really planning on doing with Wanda for movies or Vision for the future movies? Whether this series will get a second season, I doubt it. I mean, it's kind of like I think by the end of this, Vision's going to be gone for good. Um, yeah, I think they've invested quite a bit in storyline into Elizabeth Olsen in this character, and it's good because she deserves it. Like I said, she's been eating up and doing phenomenal work with every little thing they gave her up to this point. So there's that. Um, Sorry about that. I'm kind of reviewing this like as we're talking. So she comes out there, dogs everybody out, shows her powers. Mic drops on them, Max the scene, like screw y'all, leave me alone. You don't want none of this. You don't want this smoke. And then walks back on into the bubble. So again, we get little comments as the series is going that people are aware that Wanda's controlling stuff. Like the mailman made some comment to the kids like, "Oh, your mother will take care of it. She's got control of everything." It was weird though, looking at it right now, the scene where Agnes comes out of the bushes with the dog. I don't know. It's just something. The way they shot that, the way that looked it was performed, it looked odd. Like, you know, I don't know what they were trying to do. It just looked very awkward how she's rustling in the bushes and then climbs out. It's like she's got the thing already. It's almost like there may be more to that than we thought. That why she has the dog in the first place. Because I'm still sketchy about who Agnes is and what her point is in this show. You know what I'm saying? So, so the kids are trying to get her to fix the dead. Uh, so they're like, why are they? Why do they know that? You know what I mean? It's kind of odd. I think it's because these are her twins. She didn't reproduce these kids. They've got some inherent knowledge of their mother's abilities. You know what I mean? Which would make sense. It's almost like they got powers and they know who their mom is. It's like they got, like I said, it's like a, what do you call that? A spiritual or subliminal metaphysical connection to her, and they know what she can do. You see what I'm saying? And probably even when the scene where she tried to make them stop crying, and as babies they laughed. It's like when you got powers, you know what I mean? They're kind of like beyond their years in intelligence, so to speak. So again, Vision's still kind of in the dark about this, what's happening. So it's like they try to make it a little bit of the sitcom, the dog dies moment of learning a lesson, but it's also all the while there's this underlying eerie tension going on of how Wanda's uh, facade is being undone. You know what I mean? Like I said, going back though, Vision made a comment when Agnes showed up with a doghouse. He was like, and here she is, just what we needed. He's starting to figure out why does things keep happening so perfectly, and he's figuring out that Wanda may be doing something. So we get to this scene. I'm looking at right now. They're in the kitchen. He's starting to question things. They get into this argument. Man, the act. Oh! This was hilarious, but yet very disturbing. She was just like, "Yeah, well, I'm done with it. Good night." And like the theme music start, not it's a theme music, but the credits start rolling. Like she's like, "Yeah, I'm ending this show. I don't want to talk about this. Show's over." And it was like sitcom moment because I think they even had a laugh track. But then he's just like, "No." He continues talking like he's like, whoever laid out this scene is brilliant. I mean, it was so weird to be stuck in a fake sitcom type moment. Because again, I keep thinking, like, imagine a real show having this happen. Like, imagine the credits rolling, but the actors get into an argument. Of course, that would never make it to TV. You see what I'm saying? And it's going to be interesting what they see outside of Westview. Do they see it that way or not? Probably not. Because, Wanda jump cuts everything, which another thing that came up in this episode, Darcy mentioned that they figure out that Wanda's able to edit what's being seen by the outsiders. See that? For now, it answers the question. I mean, just because they're saying it doesn't mean that's what's happening. Because I was suspecting that there's another entity involved who keeps editing it for what we can see, and that's like the true villain or something, the Mephisto type thing, or whoever the theories out there. But yeah, so he's like still upset talking to her, and the credits are rolling. I just thought that was hilarious. And she walked out of the room like, "Yeah, show's over." Brilliant, 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 brilliant. I mean, I don't. I'm not gonna. I could just. It was just so dope. Like MCU, freaking unheard of, uncharted territory. I mean, he's asking her what is the Maximoff anomaly because he saw that information in that email. Oh, that was a dope scene. That he got information through that old email. But yeah, great acting. I mean, they're in here yelling at each other, having this dramatic moment, and it's like there was credits rolling, like the show was supposed to be over. Just hilarious to me, man. Not, and again, I'm laughing at it, but it's actually just laughing at how brilliant this way to play this stuff out. And it's crazy to see these characters, like I said, who haven't gotten a lot of movie time. It's working great in this sitcom environment. So they're, I'm looking at it right now. They're like yelling at each other. Pretty dramatic. I mean, just well done. Well done. You start asking, but why are there no other children in the city? So it's like she really has lost control of her sitcom. Now, again, I'm wondering, is this us seeing it, what's happening, kind of like how we got to go back and see what she did to get Monica out of the house? Oh, by the way, in the opening montage where they say on the previous episode, I'm just being nitpicky. They had looking at it again the second time, it's a little off because she said originally when Vision comes back in, he's like, "What happened to Geraldine?" She was like, "Oh, she's gone. She had to rush home." This when they said previously and they showed the recap, she was like, he came in and what happened to Geraldine? And she said, "Oh, she left. She didn't belong here." I'm like, that's not what she said. So, because that's not, the line that actually aired in episode 3 or 4. No, episode 3. Now I'm getting confused. The line that aired, yeah, that was the end of episode 3. That at the end of episode 3 was way more better by her saying she had to hurry home, because it was like you know, it was a little nod to the fact that she didn't have a home. So Vision's already seeing through that because I just got told she doesn't have a home instead of her saying she didn't belong here. That wouldn't even sound right. Because he would have been like, what do you mean by that? So I don't even know how they let that slip in. It's like the editors probably did several takes of that scene. And one time she did say that while they were figuring out how the line was going to go. And they let that slip into unless they did that on purpose for people like me to be like, hey, that's not actually what she said in that scene. But whatever. So here we are at the end. They got into their argument. The doorbell rings. They're trying to calm down. The doorbell rings. She tries to tell him, hey, I didn't do that. She goes to answer the door to kind of prove her point and get now at this point, I'm thinking to myself, that's gonna be her brother. I'm kid you not. Like I'm not trying to act like I'm a genius or I knew. But I mean, there had already been rumors that Quicksilver is gonna be in this series. They've been talking about family. I mean, she brought him up in episode 3. The kids asked her about it in this episode because they're twins, and she tells them, "Yeah, I had a twin, and I miss him sometimes." Again, great acting on her part, where it's like this level of, drama. And again, these are short moments, but they just manage to capture enough of what they need to capture as far as the emotion or sentiment of each scene. Again, I've always felt like Marvel does a good job of that, whether it's the camera angles or the director or the actors or the lines that they write or how many takes they do and just pick the one that's fixed. They just put a good job of editing something together at the end. But yeah, so I'm already thinking she's about to open a door and it's going to be her brother, of course. So literally, like the whole episode, I'm expecting. Well, I'm like, okay, this is going to be the episode where he's going to show up because they're already hinting at how she can make people come back from the dead. They're already hinting. Even she kind of looked at it like, dang, maybe I can at an earlier point. Did you see this yet? Huh? Did you see this yet? No. Then plug your ears. This is okay. Spoiler free. I'm gonna watch it. So yeah. So to me, that's what just further proof. Like it's almost like Wanda's thinking like that. Dang, maybe you can almost see the wheels turn in her head in earlier scenes when they're talking about this. Maybe even at the dog scene with Agnes out in the neighborhood. So I'm already like thinking, okay, yep, that's what's going to have her give it a shot to try to get her brother back. So I already knew that was going to be at the door. Now, there's also had been the rumors out there, if you're following the geek sites and YouTubers and all that information, the reports that Evan Peters, who I think that's his name, who played Quicksilver in the X-Men movies from Fox, that he was popping up in this show. So the speculation was that it was going to be him as Magneto. I mean Magneto. Oh, I'm getting ahead of myself on that. that he was gonna be Quicksilver. And and when I was hearing this, my initial thought was, I don't really want to see that, because why the heck would you get the guy from the Fox X-Men instead of your own MCU version, who I preferred anyway? Yeah, he had the dope scene in Days of Future Past. They tried to do it again in Apocalypse. It was okay, but the one in Days of Future Past was freaking dope as heck. So, the way they used his powers may have been more impressive. And of course, he didn't have the accent, which some people were like, eh. But I liked the Quicksilver in MCU. Um, so I was kind of like not too high on them doing that. I'm just like, why? Like, quit all that. Oh, they're in the same universe, and this is actually dope because now I was just like, no, I want it to stay consistent. That being said, and then when she opened the door and it showed the back of his head, I'm just like, yeah, there he is. So then they mess around and turn this front and show this dude's face, and I'm like, oh, come on, it is freaking Quicksilver from Fox. But I'll admit that it actually had a better effect on me, reaction, than I thought it would have, and I was kind of like, wow, y'all suckers throwing curve balls. Now I just read an article earlier this week where it was like an interview. Someone asked Elizabeth Olsen, did this show, they brought up the Luke Skywalker appearance in Mandalorian and whether there was something similar, do you have any moments like that in here? And she pretty much said that they kind of did. So maybe this was it. And a lot of things I was reading, people were speculating already in comments, and, like I said, groups in the community that that's what it was going to be. And I was just like, yeah, I guess that could be it. But I was hoping for something bigger. So I think there's still, I don't even think this is the one she's referencing. I think there's still going to be a bigger cameo. But even when, the rumors of Evan Peters being in this, I heard some people say, I think John Campia was one of them on YouTube. Follow him if you don't. Great guy when it comes to this kind of stuff. Great info and videos and discussions. But I think he was one of the people that said, I mean, he may be in this and just playing a random character, and it's just a little wink and a nod because everybody knows he did play a Quicksilver, which is kind of what I thought. Like, he'll just be in the series. Didn't really think they would go as far as to let this dude be Quicksilver. Like I said, I thought it was kind of, I didn't like the idea. I'm just like, don't do that. Don't even attach yourself to that X-Men stuff from Fox, because it was more bad than good. So to me, I overall have no use for that universe at all. First two X-Men movies, Logan, X-Men Days of Future Past, X-Men First Class. That's about it. That's it. The third X-Men movie, The Origins of Wolverine, The Wolverine from 2013. What the heck else? Apocalypse, and definitely, oh my gosh, Dark Phoenix. And to me, I don't count Deadpool. Deadpool to me is not from X-Men universe. Like, he's in his own universe. That's another topic for another day. So I don't really care for those movies as a whole, for them to be trying to connect anything. But again, ultimately, I think the grander purpose for them doing that is to let you know that with her powers now, she made an attempt to recreate her brother, and then Darcy even says, "Oh yeah, so they are watching it, because yeah, Darcy sees that." They weren't, maybe they weren't watching because they had walked away, because she walks back into an area and sees it on the screen, and she sits down. She's like, "Oh my gosh!" She recast Pietro, which is, again, like, meta, fourth wall breaking, like, whatever you want to call it, layers of Psycho, just what they're doing as far as being a sitcom using analogies. So yeah, metaphorically speaking, she recasted her brother. So I guess in a way it's gonna open up the multiverse, because it's like she found a Quicksilver and she seems surprised, and even when this is how they're showing the back of his head and Vision walks over and he's like, "Who is this?" I'm like, why the heck would Vision not know him? They were in the same movie together in Age of Ultron, and they spent some time together. But then, of course, they show his face, and then I'm just like, oh, well, dang, no wonder he doesn't recognize him. And she kind of doesn't. You see what I'm saying? And he's like, what, I can't get a hug from my sister? So it's like, that, in retrospect, is pretty dope. So it's like she mistakenly has brought a Quicksilver from another universe who recognizes her as his sister. But she's like, okay, yeah. Gives him the hug, which is weird because he only had no accent, which was part of my problem with the X-Men version of Quicksilver. I want him to have some foreign, background, just like Wanda and Pietro did in this one. They call him Peter in that movie. He's like he wasn't even a foreigner in the X-Men movies. So yeah, so there it is. He's the guy. Freaking head exploding type of ending. I mean, I didn't mark out or anything, but it just made me. I was sitting there totally straight faced, just like, what are y'all doing? What are y'all doing? So again, it's still like doesn't. It's not. I would have much rather seen Aaron Taylor Johnson standing there. Period. But this was cool because it just does open the door for the multiverse that they're going to explore in the Spider-Man movies and Doctor Strange. So it kind of confirms now that we are going to see probably Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield and Jamie Foxx and Alfred Molina and these characters from the Sam Raimi and Mark Webb, the Spider-Man original trilogy and the Amazing Spider-Man, which had 2 movies, and probably Venom and Morbius. This is how they're going to get all this stuff tied together, so to speak. I don't think they're going to go too far with trying to tie in the X-Men from Fox, but probably just a little nod to them. You know what I mean? Because I don't expect to see nobody else. Maybe Magneto, which I slipped up and mentioned him. Would be dope to have Michael Fassbender Magneto, though, not Ian McKellen. Even if they can make Fassbender look a little older, you know what I mean? He's getting pretty old anyway, so you may not have to do that much with him. I'd just rather see him than Ian McKellen, just because at this point he became as iconic of a Magneto as Ian McKellen did. But he's getting pretty old. Like I'd rather see a Magneto who's not that old. You know what I'm saying? Like not a senior citizen. Like I want one who's older and got some grit to him, but could still, I guess, pull off some stunts and action scenes. That's just me personally. And like I said, he did such a phenomenal job. He's really the last person to play him, really. I mean, from the last trilogy or 4 movies, I guess they got out of him playing Magneto. So, So that's that. There he was at the door, and it's crazy. So it looks to me like her powers are like she's doing things she didn't know she could do, and it's going in a strange direction since she didn't really know she could do it. It's like she subconsciously wanted her brother. It's almost like the freaking wish, like I said in the Wonder Woman movie, where it's like she didn't realize she had wished Steve Trevor back. So it's kind of like that. Like Wanda wants her brother back, so her part of her subconscious is able to do that, but pull him from somewhere. It's almost like closing your eyes and reaching out for him. And oh, I grabbed him, but oh shoot, I grabbed this dude from another universe because like she clearly don't seem to recognize him, and it's just kind of she's putting it together like, dang, this is my brother, but it's not him, but So and then he's just like, who's the popsicle? And laughter. So he got this like biker vibe. So I guess like it does create something more potential to go into some different directions since he isn't the actual MCU version of Quicksilver. So that's my review. Again, I mean, at this point, it's not even worth ranking these episodes. It was a great episode, solid 9 out of 10 or whatever you want to call it. I guess I haven't seen a perfect one yet, in my opinion. By MCU standards, because I hold them to a high standard. I don't throw 10s out there easily. So yeah, great episode, loving it. Oh, and this was our first 40-minute episode. Well, we got an official 33, 34 minutes of show, and then your 6 minutes of credits or whatever. So that's a good sign, and I knew it was going to happen. So can't wait for 6. This thing is actually wrapping up. I mean, we got 6, 7, 8, 9 left, and there's supposed to be. I've heard rumors there's a 10th episode, but we'll see. So That's all I got. If you like my review and stuff, leave some comments and subscribe to the channel. And let's keep it moving until next week. Till then, peace out.